There are tons of stories out there about hacked Pokemon games. Some of them are really quite neat, such as Creepy Black, where you get to use a Lavender Town ghost as a starter. Some are ridiculous as well, silly stories about people dying after playing a game, or the game talking to them. God, don't these writers know that less is more when it comes to this kind of stuff? Oh well, I digress. I grew interested in these hacked games that are apparently in any thrift store, on eBay, or handed out by homeless people to random passersby. I didn't have the pleasure of meeting any of these creepy people. I merely found this particular cartridge in a trash bin when the garbage truck backed into my neighbor's dumpster. I noticed the game and asked the trash man if I could take it, and he didn't really seem to mind. It was going to be thrown away after all. I of course checked with my neighbor to confirm that they actually didn't want it, although they seemed perplexed, as if they'd never seen it before in their life. Their son made a grab for it, a little boy who saw the Charizard on the cover crying out, "Pokemon! Pokemon! I want Mommy!" But his mother told him no, seeing as I found it. But he didn't even have a Game Boy anyway. He just liked Pokemon. Thinking nothing more, I simply went home, looking at the cartridge's sticker on the way. Just a plain old red version, the sticker torn slightly across the Charizard's neck, but it was to be expected from such an old game. I had a blue version as a kid, so I was eager to see the albeit minimal differences in red version. I was rather disappointed by what I saw when the title screen showed up. Pokemon Strangled Red version. Well, damn it, it was a hack. Hacks are neat and all, but they have zero monetary value, and the originals are quite valuable by now. And I really just wanted to play Red anyway, not this crap. Oh well, it was free, might as well try it. The name was odd, however. Strangled Red? That made no sense. Not even in a morbid description of someone being asphyxiated, as people term blue when choking, not red. Who knows? Maybe there was a pair of these hacks, and I just simply got the red one. The more I thought about this, though, the more interested I became. My initial disappointment turned into curiosity. I wanted to find out what the creator had made, and I was going to note everything I saw. The first oddity I noticed was the start screen had a Charizard next to the trainer instead of a Charmander. Also, the Pokemon never cycled through like the original versions did. It just stayed on Charizard, even after 5 minutes of waiting. Shrugging, I hit start, noticing there was no Charizard cry like I expected. I saw there was a continue option, so I figured I'd do what everyone did with used games and see what the previous owner had done. No! I blinked in surprise. No? What do you mean, no? The game wouldn't let me continue no matter what, though on the fourth attempt I heard the Charizard cry, quiet and barely audible. But there. Shrugging it off, I decided to just hit new game, like I would have done after checking the old file anyway. The screen cut to black for a while. No Professor Oak, no starting theme, nothing at all. Eventually, the screen came back, showing a bedroom, two beds, two TVs, and a computer in the corner. My trainer sprite was the usual one, consistent with the original red version. I was curious as to why I didn't ask my name, though that was answered as I opened up the pause menu, noticing my trainer was named Steven. No, this isn't my real name or some stupid crap like that. The game isn't self-aware or haunted, at least not that I know of. It just came with the name chosen already. Curious, I saw he had the starter amount of money, no badges. He didn't look like Red, though. His hair was longer, almost reaching halfway down his back. Red's usual smile was replaced with a confident smirk. Honestly, I found this sprite much cooler than Red. Next, I checked his Pokemon, a single Charmander, level 5, named Mickey. Nothing was odd about it, or should I say her, with the name and all. She had beginning Charmander stats and only knew Scratch and Growl, basic stuff. The game seemed relatively normal. Returning to the game, I walked about the room, noticing Steven's long hair was present on his back of my trainer sprite when his back was turned to the camera. I didn't recognize the house, but I descended the stairs to see more. Downstairs was another trainer, who spoke to me the instant I came down. Ready yet? Yeah. I assumed this Mike was my rival, pre-decided for me, a replacement of Blue most likely, though I thought back to the bedroom having two beds, realizing they weren't just rivals. They were brothers. They talked back and forth, basic Pokemon dialogue, become a Pokemon master, catch 'em all, stuff like that, before having a little argument over which is better, Charmander or Squirtle, which of course led to the introduction battle, like the one versus Blue in the lab. Simple enough, scratch, tackle, until I won, purely for having the first turn. I took note of how much better Steven's sprite looked in combat than Red's. A different pose, his hair looking like it was blowing in the wind, a brief minor upgrade, but still much nicer. I left the house after some banter with my brother, stepping out into the Palatown theme. Going to the east, I found myself in what was indeed Pallet Town. The house was simply on the outskirts to the west. I noticed there was no mysterious grassy field like in normal Pallet Town in the original games. Wandering about, I decided to check in on Red's home. His mother was inside, and when I talked to her, she commented on how handsome Steven looked, hoping her son would look up to him as a role model for when he became a Pokemon trainer a year later. Which of course led me to realize that this game took place a year before the original Pokemon Red and Blue versions. Red was even upstairs, playing the SNES in his room, commenting, "I'm gonna be the best too when it's my turn." It was starting to look like a hack. It was interesting, a completely new adventure, a different character. Hell, Steven even seemed to have a history with the people in his town, a reputation, personality beyond a silent protagonist. The people in this town talked to him as a person, making conversation, not just spouting tutorial crap. Even Blue's sister had new dialogue. They seemed to be in a relationship too, as the dialogue ended with a kiss and a heart over her head. Professor Oaks simply wished me well, giving me a Pokedex to aid my adventure. He wasn't giving it to me to be the reason behind the adventure like every other Pokemon game out there. He gave it to me out of kindness, something to help me along my way. I was liking this more and more with each second. The game seemed to have an actual story now. I was somebody, not just a cookie cutter protagonist anyone could be, not some blank sheet that could be replaced without notice. The story was different though, but the actual gameplay remained unchanged. I went north like I was supposed to, went from town to town, collected badges, receiving praise from the leaders. Steven's fame even seemed to spread, as some NPCs would talk to him like they knew him. I used Mickey for every battle, and she was growing surprisingly fast. She handled Brock with ease, even pounded Missy with no trouble at all. She wasn't as adversely affected by super effective attacks like the others. She did more damage than a regular Charmander. She was a powerhouse to say the least. She even became a Charizard at the mere level of 25. Not bad at all, if I must say. Things started to get weird though as soon as I reached Lavender Town. I know, Lavender Town is the focus behind every creepy story and the like, but it was the only place that was noticeably different. There was no Team Rocket invasion, which I found odd, though I did remember it was a year in the past, so the invasion wouldn't occur until Red's time. I tried to enter the Pokemon Tower hoping to get a Ghastly, but that's when it got odd. I have no reason to be here. Steven would go into Pokemon Tower no matter what I did. This was weird. I mean, hell, there are a million places in Kanto you really have no reason to be, like little random houses with nothing but children. Why was it here that Steven wouldn't enter? With a shrug, I figured I would need a Ghastly, seeing as Mickey could handle anything. So I simply went on my way, Lavender Town serving no purpose other than a passageway with a Pokemon Center. The game progressed normally from here. The remaining gyms fell, and eventually I made my way to the Elite Four and defeated them. As with Blue, my brother Mike was there before me, initiating the championship battle, which Mickey swept with ease. The aftermath of the battle was quite pleasant. None of that tension that was present between Red and Blue at the end of their match. The brothers congratulated each other on their progress and shook hands, before the screen went white. There was no Hall of Fame, not even any credits. When the screen came back, I was in the house again, the two brothers sitting at the computer, conversing with each other. I don't want to. Come on! I gotta borrow her for a second, just to finish the Pokedex. The entry won't register unless she recognizes me as her master. Just for a second. But she's my Mickey. I promise I'll give her back. Come on. Please? I was a bit perplexed, so I hit no just to be cautious. Come on, please? No. Come on, please? I realized this would simply loop on until I hit yes, so I did, just to see what would happen. Alright, this'll take just a second. Then we'll both be Pokemon Masters. The screen changed to the animation shown when two people trade Pokemon, which I found to be a bit weird, seeing as I was solo, but whatever. This was apparently what was supposed to happen. Mickey went first. I watched lazily as she began to travel down the trading tube. That made me jump, the sudden noise resonating in my silent bedroom, loud due to the volume being way up. Looking at the screen, I noticed the game seemed to have frozen. Mickey's still in mid-trade, but the game wasn't doing anything. With a sigh, I turned the game off, wondering where my last save was. When I turned the game back on, I stared for a moment at the start screen. There was no Charizard next to the trainer. Upon pressing start, I saw the new game option was absent, leaving only continue. This was strange to say the least, so I hit continue. My jaw dropped at what I was greeted with. 1 year later. The Lavender Town theme came first, playing in its normal way, the screen slowly fading in from blackness. Steven was in the Pokemon Tower, which made the music even stranger, seeing as the tower had a theme of its own. He was standing in front of a tombstone, not doing anything. Wondering what it was, I pressed A. Confused, I tried walking, realizing I was indeed in control at the moment. I brought up the pause menu and checked my party. Mickey was gone. But not just Mickey. All Pokemon. He had nothing. The Pokedex was absent from the menu, his bag was empty. Honestly concerned now, I checked his trainer card. He had no money, he had no badges. His playtime was 8,795, which was impossible, as I had only logged in 30. But that wasn't the strangest part. His picture, the picture of the handsome, confident young man, was different. His eyes were blank, his face turned slightly down. That smirk was gone, replaced by a lack of any expression at all. That long hair of his, before in a perfect perm, was now messy and unkempt. I couldn't look at him anymore. Closing the menu, I went to move out of the tower, but with every step I took from the tombstone, the screen flickered, like it did when a Pokemon was poisoned. Gulping, I brought up the trainer card again. His picture was getting worse. Every step I took, he hung his head lower, more and more. His shoulders slumped and he bent over. By the time I exited the tower, he was on his knees, hands to his face, hair draped across him. I had guessed already what was going on, but this clinched it. I began to put some things together in my mind. I had always wondered why there was no champion in the original games besides your rival. Why is it you, the protagonist, have to beat your rival when he just waltzed in, no previous champion to challenge? But then it struck me. The answer was right here. The previous champion gave up. His precious Mickey was apparently dead, and with her, so died a part of him. His Pokedex, his other Pokemon, his badges, his fame, all of it. He threw it away. And that year, the year that I missed, the year where all of those hours came from, I even did the math. There are 8,765 hours in a year. Add that to my 30 from before, and it all matched up. Even so, the game kept going. This should have been an ending, I thought. I mean, what else is there to do? I had no Pokedex, no Pokemon, nothing. What was I supposed to be doing? I talked to everyone in the town, but they all said similar things. Are you okay? Still mourning, I see. Everything will be all right. Please, is there anything we can do for you? Steven never replied to them, and they simply said the same things over and over. I couldn't put the game down now. This was all so strange. Curious, I headed off into the tall grass and eventually got into a battle with the Rattata. No Pokemon was sent out, just Steven's sprite. I was wondering how I'd battle. Wild Rattata left you be. The battle ended without anything happening. This was certainly interesting, and it happened with every Pokemon I encountered. Wild Pidgey ignored you. Wild Ponyta wandered off. The music never changed either. No matter where I went, the Lavender Town theme came from the speakers, following me. Sometimes slowed down slightly, sometimes not. I searched everywhere, every town, talked to everybody, wondering just what the hell I needed to do. My frustration was beginning to mix with the depressing atmosphere of all of this, making the experience altogether unnerving and uncomfortable. But I couldn't tear myself away. I was starting to get a bit angry, though. Nobody was telling me anything besides giving me their condolences and trying to give me items like lemonade or coffee, each met with no. I slapped myself for idiocy, suddenly realizing how likely the answer was right in front of me. Pallet Town, of course. When I went there, though, which took a long time having to walk, no Pokemon to fly with, no bicycle to ride, and Steven only seemed to be walking at half the regular speed. I tried talking to Professor Oak first. These things happen. You were just unlucky. Next I tried Blue's sister. Please, don't leave home again. Red's mom wouldn't even talk to me at all. With nowhere else to go, I walked to the west, finding the house from the beginning, which I had never entered since leaving Pallet Town. Inside was Mike, but talking to him was just as useless. I'm So sorry. I pondered for a moment if this was really the ending. Stephen doomed to do nothing but roam Kanto in misery, haunted by the memories, forced to listen to everyone's concerns about him. As a last-ditch effort to do anything, I went to the bedroom and walked over to the bed. I'm going to sleep. The screen faded to black for a moment, but then suddenly faded back in, the world having a black tint to it, Mike's sprite laying in the other bed. I assumed this meant it was at night. I'm going to do it. Do what? Again, I had no idea. I tried inspecting everything in the room, but nothing happened. As soon as I left the house, another dialogue. It can bring her back. It can do anything. What the hell was it? Something that could do anything? I couldn't for the life of me figure out what it was. Wandering about, I tried to leave Pallet Town the usual way. Not that way. He wouldn't go any further. I tried the homes. Screw them. I quirked my eyebrows at that, forgetting for a moment that this was not a real Pokemon game. The vulgarity just caught me off guard. I continued to look around, but there was nowhere I could go, until I accidentally stepped in the ocean tile in the south, and Stephen walked right in. Only the upper half of his sprite was visible, like the swimmers you encounter in the Cerulean Gym. I didn't know he could swim. The missing one. Missing one? I paused for a moment at that. No, he couldn't possibly mean that I hadn't tried the missing no trick in this hack yet, but it just fit too well. That had to have been what he meant. I surfed all the way towards Cinnabar. I began to feel something was off, more so than already was. There was silence. The Lavender Town theme had stopped. There was no noise at all, nor were there any Pokemon. I just kept swimming. Finding Cinnabar and surfing up and down the east coast, lo and behold, Wild Missing No appeared. Mine. Wild Missing No was caught. What the hell? Stephen didn't do anything. He just commanded that the atrocity of broken data to join him. No, become his possession. And it did. I was getting more and more disturbed by all of this. Checking the start menu, I saw Missing No was not in my party, but instead, it was an item, making things even stranger. I checked the trainer card as well. Stephen had his back to me, his long hair draped behind him, his hands in his pockets. Nothing else. Remembering what he said at the start of this night, I realized what I had to do. I surfed to land and made my way northeast to, where else? Lavender Town. Along the way, I noticed all the trainers wouldn't look at Stephen, all of them turning their backs when he passed, even those that were normally static. I tried talking to the guards in those little houses. Just go. They all said the same thing, though one sent chills down my spine. Sometimes, dead is best. My hands were sweating at this point. Stephen was about to try the impossible, something some would see as a crime against nature, which many of these people shared that opinion. I told myself it's just a game, and I was going to complete it. It took an eternity to get to Pokemon Tower, but I eventually got there. I took a deep breath and headed toward Mickey's tombstone. I remembered which one. The image of Stephen standing before it was burned into my mind after all. First, I tried inspecting it. Mickey. Nothing happened. With a gulp, I opened the menu and selected Missing No from the bag. Stephen, don't use it! I was reminded of when Professor Oak would magically tell you that you couldn't use a key item somewhere. Like when you want to use a bike instead of a building. Though the message was different this time. Even worse. Stephen responded to it. In a world that cheated me, why should I play fair? Stephen used it. Stephen obtained... What in God's name did I just obtain? I couldn't tell you, because the game took away my control. Without my input, Stephen began to leave the tower on his own, walking single step by single step. The Lavender Town theme started again, as he left the tower and began its excruciating, slow, painful journey against my will. Every time he crossed one of the borders where the music would change, it progressively got slower, more and more disturbing. By the time he reached Cerulean City, it was a demonic rumbling. I just stared, watching him, trying to guess where he was going, but it was getting more and more obvious. He was heading to Pallet Town. The music had all but stopped when he got there, playing single note by single note. He went exactly where I had guessed, right to his own house, inside and up the stairs. At this point, there was no music. Stephen moved step by step, stopping at his brother's bed, turning to face him. At first, I thought the game froze. He didn't do anything. He just simply stood there. I couldn't move him. I did, however, find I could open the pause menu. I was terrified to look, but I couldn't stop myself. I selected his trainer card. There was a low growl noise like a distorted Pokemon cry. Steven was looking at me again, directly at the screen. He was hunched over, his bangs obscuring his face. His hair was wild and feathered out. Between his bangs, there wasn't even a face at all, just darkness. Two red eyes looking straight forward, a white grin contrasting with the darkness. But that wasn't all. His name was now. I couldn't look away, my eyes glued to this, not breaking contact for some time. My vision was getting blurry until I couldn't see it very well. My face grew wet. I was crying. There was nothing I could do to hold back the tears. I was with this boy from the start. I built him up to greatness, and was then forced to watch his decline after a tragic accident. And now, he was this thing, this abomination. I watched him go insane. Halting my tears and wiping my eyes, I closed out of the trainer card and tried to save the game, wanting to just quit. The game informed me that this was impossible. Nothing can be saved now. The pause menu wouldn't close no matter what I did, so with no other option, I checked the bag. Nothing happened. I checked Pokemon, and there was one. A single sprite met me. It had 0 HP, its status was dead. Its name? Forever. I selected it, and it was greeted with 4 options. It's her. Never. No. My finger shaking, I selected Strangle, and the pause menu closed, showing Steven in the room again. Goodbye. The game shut itself off. I was more dumbfounded than frightened. In a bit of shock, I turned it back on, the title screen showing me a Maddox and a horribly glitched Charizard. I pressed start, then continue. All I saw was a zoomed out view of Palatown, showing Steven's home to the west, tall grass surrounding it, those unmovable stones blocking it from the rest of the town. The image was completely static, no music, no movement, but then it faded to white, and then went back to the title screen. It was the original title screen when I first turned it on, a trainer and a Charizard. I attempted to hit continue. No.